place. I can feel its mighty power and its grace. There's a holy hush around us. I see glory in its face. Surely the presence of joy is in this place. Surely the presence of peace is in this place. I can feel its loving power and its grace. There's a holy truth within us that whoever it can place. Surely the presence of peace is in this place. Surely the presence of love is in this place. I can feel its tender power and its grace. There's a holy glow within us that nothing can erase. Surely the presence of love is in this place.
Surely the presence. I first encountered that song at a church, at a Methodist church in Truckee, California. Are we on?
Yes.
I bet we're on now. Are we? Do you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I first encountered that song at Methodist Church in downtown Truckee, California many decades ago. And then when we moved to Las Vegas, I encountered it again at a very unusual church called Teaching of the Inner Christ. And then when I first walked in that door a number of years back, you sang it to me when we arrived as well, or I sang along with you. That if you happen to know that song yourself from prior attendance at a church, you will know that we apparently have changed the lyrics some. The original song when I first met it in Truckee was called Surely the Presence of God is in this place. And you notice we call it Surely the Presence. And you might say, well, wait a minute. You've removed God from the presence, from this presence? Well, no, not really. What we've really done is give a clearer definition of what we mean when we say God. So the way we look at it, God is the presence of joy, is the presence of peace, is the presence of love. So we don't need to put God up in the title as long as we have God within our walls, and we do, and as long as we have God within the walls of our bodies, and we do. So the presence is here at all times. We each come to this magical place on Sunday for our own very personal reasons. Perhaps it's to replenish our faith, or maybe to create some stillness in a life that seems to be full of noise, or maybe to acknowledge the importance of community in all of our lives. Or perhaps we just need to change our focus from me to we. But whatever our personal reason may be, our communal reason seems to be to stop, take a breath, and concentrate for a while on improving our awareness of what truly matters in our lives, and on understanding what we each may need to do to be the best me that I can be, and for us to be the best we that we can be as a spiritual community. So let us metaphorically join hands and continue this walk together. Namaste. We have a mini message.
Yes.
We do have a mini message.
Yes, we do.
I can't wait to see who. Oh, yes,
Yes.
Joy.
Thank you all for being here, meeting me in this sweet hall, whose history we share and appreciate. This hall holds our God, our good, in the form of joy and peace and love. It holds so many stories, including our own. It holds history. And we each bring to it our own history. Our histories form and inform our lives. Mine includes a lot of dancing, cooking, mothering, and working. It also includes a loss or two from gun violence and a long-standing marriage to a veteran. I bring this up because I'm going to cheat today. I'm going to bring to you a piece of history from outside these walls, but inside my heart. I'm going to read someone else's proclamation. I've read this every year since I found it about 40 years ago. It was written in 1870, and as part of women's history, which I call her story, it hasn't exactly been buried, but as a part of women's history, it is not necessarily taught to us. You may remember the name Julia Ward Howe. The woman who wrote these words I'll share with you. She also wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic. She wrote these words as the original Mother's Day proclamation. Thank you, mothers who are here today. She was, in fact, an abolitionist, a suffragette, and an anti-war activist. I welcome her history into our halls here today. I share her writing and her history as an early remembrance for Mother's Day. It's coming up in 2 weeks. I won't be here, so I'm taking this opportunity as an early warning system to remind you that that's upcoming. I think her words are very appropriate on this time. It is kind of troubling times that we live in, but remember, we all have a mother. And this particular mother held us all dear. She recognized the importance of our humanity. Arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking of carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender to those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of a devastated earth, a voice comes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out disorder, nor violence indicate possession. As men have forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after his time the sacred impress of a Caesar, not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and humanity, I earnestly ask that a general Congress of women without limit of nationality be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with the objects to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace. Women, call forth your men to do the same. Thank you, Julia Ward Howe, for your words, your reminders. And know that her words ring true just as much today as they did in her day. She called forth women, as do I, but I call forth all to take up your plowshares once again and be at peace. Thank you.
Well, you may not be here on Mother's Day, Joy, but your words will still ring in our ears and in our hearts. And thanks to Ms. Howe for her marvelous, marvelous sentiments. Thank you all for being here. It's a nice looking group. We started slowly, but we're getting more full as we go. We have some announcements. First off, I understand, I wasn't there, but I understand that last night's Cabaret at the Oaks was a smashing success. The Bluebirds were here, and I know that at least one person closed the shop down later in the evening. Thank you all for who showed up and for who helped. We're going to have another cabaret at the end of this month, assuming that Patrick Michael McCarty's voice continues to heal, because Take Your Medicine, his group, is the one that's supposed to be there on May 25th, which coincides with our monthly potluck. We're going to have the cabaret and the potluck on May 25th. Okay, so today after church, of course, we have this month's potluck. And if you didn't happen to bring anything, not a problem. There's always enough for everyone. May 3rd, that's this coming Friday, is Ring Out Danger. That's where a few of us gather together by the bell and we ring it for 5 minutes straight, starting at 9:35 a.m., which was the period of time that it took a deranged gunman to kill way too many children and teachers at Sandy Hook Elementary School. 2 decades ago now, way too long ago. And we're still working on trying to figure out how to prevent that in the future. We're going to ring that bell until there's some more prevention than we got now. May 3rd and 4th, this next Friday and Saturday, apparently we're going to be installing the new floor in the hall. And while they have sufficient heavy-duty laborers, could use a couple more volunteers apparently to help carry out empty boxes to the trash and all. So if you're at all interested in assisting on next Friday and or Saturday, call Patrick Michael McCarty and find out the details. And if his phone number, in case you don't know it, 707-695-6098, but it's also in our telephone directory. May 12th is going to be our Board of Directors meeting, 9 a.m. in the hall. May 13th, I think, I don't see Natalie here today, but May 13th, I believe, and the 27th will be the healing circle Monday evenings here in the sanctuary. Okay, ladies, spiritual book is this Thursday, 10 a.m. in the hall, and then the following two Thursdays later, they'll meet again, apparently. All right, every other Thursday. All right, is there anything else that I might have forgotten in the way of an announcement? Well, if not, then we can move on. It's time to stand up and sing a really bright and sunny song called There Is Sunshine in My Soul Today, number 21 in the Wings of Song. Stand and get loose.
There is sunshine in my soul today. It is glorious and bright, ever glowing with the warm and gray. For Jesus is my light. Oh, the sunshine, blessed sunshine, as a peaceful happy moment flow. For as I behold the Christ in every face, there is sunshine in my soul. There is springtime in my soul today. I know the Lord is near. Still notes of peace in my heart. The joy of grace appear. Oh, the sunshine, blessed sunshine, as a peaceful moment flow. For I behold the Christ in every face, and there's sunshine in my soul. There is gladness in my soul today. I hope and love and praise for blessings which you get to know are brightening all my days. Oh, there's sunshine, blessed sunshine, as a peaceful, happy moment's roll. For I behold the Christ in every face, and there's sunshine in my soul.
Time to greet each other in the time-tested way, Church of the Oak way. Enjoy.
They changed the key on that, was that okay? I took it a little lower.
Oh my goodness. Somebody else is guys, spiritual souls.
They didn't do this in church when I was a kid. Catholic church was very stern. It's really
It's somber occasion.
yeah. Catholic church
Oh my.
in the 50s.
The Methodist Church was friendlier, but still.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Hey, we're going to hear about farming. I love it.
What an abundance of love, peace, and joy we just experienced with all of our greeting of each other and our singing of the songs. In my life, music is very important, so I really do appreciate the gusto that we bring to some of those songs and the gusto with which our pianist plays them. Abundance. It's time to talk a little bit about abundance. We have so much of it, especially here in this county. Everything that you look at is blooming. Everything looks wonderful, and we're going to even make it look more wonderful. You can't hear very well, huh? Well, I don't know how to mess with this, so I'll just talk closer. All right. At any rate, we are so fortunate for the abundance that we share. And of course, we do have in the back a basket for those who wish to give of your own treasure for the benefit of the whole, while you can drop it in the basket on your way out, or just send in a regular tithe like many of us do. You need to know that it costs us about $5,500 each and every month to run this operation we call Church of the Oaks. And if it weren't for the fact that Committee on the Homeless leases our old parsonage for $2,850 a month, we would be hard pressed to meet all the obligations that we have. But they cover a full 50% plus of our expenses and necessary expenses, so that we were able to accumulate sufficient funds recently to buy the $4,000 plus worth of flooring that we're going to be installing on next Friday and Saturday. So that truly is abundance, and yet we still manage to continue to maintain and cover all expenses, necessary expenses, and we're going to save up a few more shekels to do some more improvements in the future. So good to all of us for sharing our abundance. Let's take a look in the middle of the order of service where it says celebrating our abundance, and read together the affirmation of abundance. And here is what it says. Abundance is not something we acquire, it's something we tune into. Let's tune into that as Michael plays a little tune. In preparation for meditation, we're going to sing the song number 97 from the Wings of Song, called In the Stillness on your order of service. It's actually called In the Stillness of the Silence. So it's nice to go into this silence with a little bit of silence first. So let us now sing In the Stillness of the Silence, 97.
In the stillness of the silence, I am one with perfect mind. I am healed, I live in freedom. Joy now fills me, thrills me, in the stillness of the silence, I am one with mind and love. I am wise, my thoughts are loving. Peace now fills me, thrills me, mind and love. In the stillness of the silence, I am one with God the good. I am trusting as I listen. Faith now fills me, thrills me, mind and love.
Part of the lyrics of the song we sing often, Surely the Presence. The lyrics that I chose for this meditation are this. There's a holy glow within you that no error can erase. For today's meditation, become quiet. Perhaps close your eyes and feel that holy glow within you. Envision it as a bright orb in your chest that expands throughout your body with each slow breath. You become a beacon of light. If thoughts begin to interfere, let that light diminish them. Focus on your holy light as it grows with each slow breath. So let's begin. As we begin to close down, engulf yourself in this light. It will protect you and give you peace as you go about your day. And so it is.
We have been duly prepared today. Wayne, you contributed right out of the chute. Joy, your contribution was very profound. The meditation was wonderful. My theme today, or my title, is How Does Your Garden Grow? I'm going to continue with a garden theme. It's that time of year, and it's really who I am. But there is a mystery that I have been trying to hold on to for some time in my life. Definitely the last 20 years. And that is this, is that the person who I perceive myself to be is not really the person who I am. And I think all of us ask ourselves that question in different ways and at different times. There is times that we experience the great virtues of joy, peace, faith, hope. The greatest of which I would like to address this morning is love. To encounter the Spirit or God, and Wayne, I so appreciate how you moved the experience of oneness and of the Spirit above that concept of God that creates in our mind was very profound. But when we encounter this, and for some it takes us longer than others, we're changed. Some would even say we're damaged for the rest of our lives. And if you laugh, you understand what I mean by that. We've all heard the saying, you can run, but you can't hide. I believe Max Lucado was right when he said, God does love us just the way we are. He just refuses us to leave us that way. I've come to believe, and I have come, and it's taken me a while, that the good news of the gospel of Jesus was that we are already one with the divine Spirit. We don't do all the things that we do to make amends and try to appease God. We do it because we have experienced Spirit and union with Him, and we want to be part of His expanding love and joy in the world. And that if we would just let go of the false things that we have surrounded ourselves with, i.e. the ego, we truly do experience union. That letting go and moments of union are a lifetime journey. And we all have them. And we try to hold on to them. I've chosen a simple garden metaphor to talk about the soul today. And by the soul, I mean your and mine unique essence, our own unique history, our DNA, our relationships, our experiences, all the good, all the bad, all the ugly, all that was formed in our thought, in our opinions, our worldview, both present and future. It's who we are. I think we all, whether we realize it or not, have what the Celts called thin spaces. I think, Joy, you alluded to that a little bit this morning. It might be for some music, for others nature, poetry, art, or a number of other things. But these are places that we find it's somewhat easier to connect in that thin space with Spirit. For me, it's dirt. The condition of the soul and the condition of the soil in my garden have very, very strong parallels. Both are impacted by external forces that demand constant attention, I know for me. There's a famous parable in the New Testament, the sower and the seed. And many of you I know are probably familiar with it. But it's a simple story, a parable that was told that the seed's ability to germinate and to sprout and to produce a harvest is directly related to the condition of the soil that it's in. My soul's ability to flourish is directly related to the condition of the soil of my soul. You know, the four conditions. There was that rocky, hard path, and all the seed that fell on the path were immediately picked up by the birds. And then there was the rocky ground, and the seed sprouted quickly in the rocky soil, but as soon as the sun hit it, it had no moisture, it dried up and withered away. And then there was the soil that was consumed by weeds. And eventually the seed sprouted, but it was choked out. And lastly, there was the good soil that yielded the harvest. I have spent the better part of my adult life trying to yield a harvest. That's probably because I grew up in a farming family, and growing what you ate was part of what we did, and it's part of my soul's DNA, and it still is a part of that today. I'm in the process right now of moving my garden. It's a large operation. I've been gardening an area on our farm for about 10 to 15 years, and the soil just needed a rest. The production was getting lower and lower each and every year. It was more effort. And I'm always reminded of the Old Testament principle of Sabbath. You know, the Israelites were given this principle not just on a seventh day of rest, but it also applied to their growing seasons. Every seventh year, they were to leave an area that was farmed and let it go fallow for a year. And every 49th year, that same area that they farmed was to be let gone fallow for 7 years. Now that sounds pretty amazing. And had they followed that, the promise is that they would always have an abundant supply, that the ground would always produce enough for their needs. But they didn't do it. I don't do it, although I understand the concept, and I began to realize and pay the price. So now I'm moving this garden. And it's an arduous process, but one that is worth it, I believe. I've also spent, again, the better part of my life devoted to helping people awaken to their growth in the Spirit. Now, I associate this with my garden. And as I poured myself into that process of helping people grow in awareness to the Spirit, largely it was done in the context of teenage kids. But I spent well over 20 years devoted intensely to the spiritual transformation of young people. Now that looks very different than this crowd here this morning. It is very much involved with relationships, spending time. It's a much more organic approach to spiritual connection. But it's been over 20 years since I left that vocation. And without going into the details, at that time, about 20 years ago, I was confronted with a decision to continue full-time in this endeavor that I had spent those decades doing, or the reality was lose my marriage. Again, this was a very time-consuming, and all the time that I devoted to my family, over time, things just got to a point where a decision had to be made. Now, Warren Buffett sums this up, and this is in your bulletin. He sums it up quite well. The most dangerous distractions are the ones you love, but that don't love you back. Now, I bring that up because there are many times that we can be wrapped up in doing what we think are the great things for the kingdom of God. But when we're truly connected with Spirit, when we're truly doing the things that the Spirit is directing us to do, there is a reciprocal nature in those efforts. We're loved back. It's like the soil that is tended to properly, that is let rest, and that is loved. There is a reciprocalness of that union that we have with nature as well as with people. I began to face a reality in that moment in time 20 years ago. And again, I was in the prime of my adult life. This was a real crisis point. But that I realized that I think I was killing myself doing things for God that He never asked me to do. That there was really something more that I was. And that all that I was doing, I was trying to fill that hole, but there was something more that God had for me. There is, the scriptures speak of a peace that passes all understanding. I know that I have experienced that peace twice in my life, vividly. The first time was when my wife and I received the prognosis that our newborn son would be severely and mentally handicapped. The second time was walking away from what I believed a lifetime calling was and looking at a very unknown future, and yet knowing that in the midst of it, things were going to be okay. That same peace in both those situations, in both those moments that were very bleak to me, but yet there was a peace that I could not explain that engulfed me at that time. Major career changes are never planned for. And in the midst of all of this that was going on, I had time on my hands and I went to a JC class, agricultural class. And one of the components of this class at the JC, it was out at the Schoen Farm out in West County, was about composting, of all things. Hot composting. Composting, the goal of composting is to produce humus. Humus is that dark organic material that forms in soil when plant and animal matter decays. It's rich in nutrients and retains moisture in the soil. And this class was about hot composting, which did that whole process in 90 days, not years. And what we were taught in this class, and this is where God spoke to me of all places, but what we were taught in this class is that you take all the old material in your garden, on your barnyard, all the brown material, and you combine that with green material, the newly pruned grass clippings, manure, everything that is of the nitrogen, of the carbon and the nitrogen together, and you put it in a confined space, and you add water, and just wait for it to heat up. Now that might sound, where is God speaking in all this? But for me, God really spoke. He showed me that all of the things that I had accomplished thus far, and all the things that I was trying to do in the present, that I was just allowing God and Spirit to compost it, to compost me. I needed to step away and lay fallow. I've been told, and I have come to believe it now, that there are two times in life when we are closest to Spirit. Or I should say we are closest to being open to listening to Spirit. And that's in moments of experiencing great love and great sorrow. And I've experienced both. But it's been in these moments, this was a moment of loss, it was a moment of sorrow. And I came to realize that in this process that all of this was being composted, rendered, it was dying, and I could go into the process of it. It's a smelly process, and I won't go into that. And there's a lot of applications that go with those times in our life. But I know that we've all experienced them. And there's a purpose, and there's an outcome. There's a quote I gave you from Rumi. There are individuals that have walked this earth that can say in a few words what most of us take pages to say. And he sums this up very succinctly. In the silence of love, you will find the spark of life. In the midst of my composting of my life, I experienced the love of Spirit. We have no guarantees that when we go through a difficult time, I was told years ago that when we go through a difficult, trying time in life, we can come out one of two ways. We can come out bitter or we can come out better. And there's always that risk. And sometimes if we're bitter, it just takes us longer. We'll get there, but it might just take us longer. But I'm grateful that God gave me that peace that passes all understanding, and I was willing to let go. Not to hold on to let go of what had been, and wait with anticipation with what God had for me in the future. And life did move on. My wife and I, we figured it out. Did I get the answers? Hardly. If anything, I felt as though I was starting over, but grateful to have the chance. But what I did experience in all that letting go was the love of God. The greatest of virtues. And I began to understand that the Spirit's love, no matter what the situation, is one of letting go. Like the decaying material, animal and plant material that decays in a compost pile, our lives are a cycle of deaths and rebirths. We don't lose our identity when we let go. At least I began to realize that I was part of the expanding reality of what Spirit was doing in my life. And not only did I experience Spirit, but I was able to see Spirit through God's eyes. That I was beginning to understand basic principles of loving my neighbor as myself. Loving my neighbor without judgment. Love is not something that we can force ourselves to do. Love is about trust. Love is about a free fall, so to speak, of experience that I really am more than I think I am. That I truly am in the presence. I am forgiven. I'm accepted for who I am. I don't always feel that way. I'm still in the midst of the mystery. But I would just like to remind you that compost is the love of the soil, and love is the compost of the soul. That as I give love, as I receive love, as you give love and receive love, it is compost to the soul. It's allowing our souls to have an environment where we can truly grow. And maybe others see things in you that you don't see in yourselves. I find that to be true in my life. I like to know what's going on. Is anything getting better? And it's usually in the people that know me and love me the most that indicate in their own ways differences, that I'm no longer the way I was in certain areas, that change does take place. I'd like to leave you with this one thought or quote. I didn't have room to put it in the bulletin. It's written by Cleo Wade. She's a contemporary poet. But I think it sums up maybe what I've tried awkwardly to say to you this morning. The goal of a healthy soul. The best thing about your life is that it's in a constant state of design. This means you have, at all times, the power to redesign it. Make moves, allow shifts, smile more, do less, say no, say yes. Just remember, when it comes to your life, you are not just the artist, but the masterpiece as well. Namaste.
Feel like it, you may. Well done, sir. Now I know why you got invited back. And I'm sure you'll be invited back again, and we all look forward to it. Right there at the end, I found myself going, wow, imagine that. We can reinvent ourselves. We can compost ourselves. Who would have thought manure would have felt so good? So with that, let us do our final song. Let's stand and sing Imagine. It's on the inside cover of your songbook.
Imagine there is no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people waiting for today. Oh, oh. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday your children and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for another. Brotherhood of will. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. someday you'll trust, and the world will live as one.
Grab a hand, get in the circle. Get in the circle.